What if I told you that two of the most powerful immune-supporting, disease-fighting substances on the planet are not locked inside some expensive supplement, not hidden behind a prescription, but sitting quietly in the produce section of your local grocery store, probably for less than $3? I'm not talking about trendy superfoods nobody can pronounce. I'm talking about vegetables that have been studied at Johns Hopkins, the University of Illinois, and Memorial Sloan Kettering. Vegetables that have gone head-to-head with disease processes and laboratories and produced results that genuinely surprise the researchers who found them. But here's the part that nobody tells you. Most people eating these vegetables every week are getting a fraction of the benefit they could be because of how they're preparing them. There's a specific chemical reaction that has to happen inside these vegetables for the active compounds to form, and the most common cooking methods destroy that reaction entirely. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what those compounds are, what they do inside your body at the cellular level, and the simple preparation steps that can multiply what you absorb by 3 times or more. I'm Ethan Reed, and today we're going deep on the top 2 vegetables that science says can genuinely support your immune system and protect your health from the ground up. Let's start from the beginning. Before we talk about the vegetables, I want to give you a foundation because immune support gets thrown around so loosely that it's almost lost its meaning. Supplements promise it. Juice brands promise it. So let's be precise about what we're actually talking about. Your immune system is not one thing. It's a layered network of systems operating simultaneously. You have your innate immune system, the fast, general-purpose first responder that kicks in within minutes of detecting a threat. And you have your adaptive immune system, the slower, highly targeted system that learns, remembers, and builds antibodies specific to particular pathogens. Both systems are sophisticated. Both degrade over time if the conditions in your body aren't right. 2 things in particular wear them down faster than almost anything else in modern life. The first is oxidative stress. Every day, your body produces molecules called free radicals as a byproduct of normal metabolism. Burning fuel, fighting infections, even just breathing. In small amounts, free radicals are actually useful. Your immune cells use them as weapons against pathogens. But when free radical production outpaces your body's ability to neutralize them, they start damaging healthy tissue. They attack cell membranes. They damage DNA. They contribute to the kind of slow-burning cellular dysfunction that, over years and decades, is linked to accelerated aging and chronic disease. Your body has its own antioxidant defense system to manage this. Enzymes like superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione peroxidase. The question is whether your lifestyle is supporting or undermining those systems. The second is chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is healthy. You sprain your ankle, it swells up. That's your immune system doing its job, sending blood and repair resources to the site of damage. The problem is when inflammation becomes chronic, when your immune system is stuck in a low-grade state of activation for weeks, months, years. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be a driver, not just a symptom, of many of the most common chronic conditions: cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers, autoimmune disorders, even depression. And it's increasingly common in modern life, driven by poor sleep, high stress, processed food, and sedentary behavior. Here's where the vegetables come in. The 2 vegetables I'm going to talk about today don't just contain vitamins and minerals, though they contain plenty of those too. They contain specific bioactive compounds that interact directly with these 2 processes. Compounds that have been studied in controlled trials, in cell cultures, in animal models, and increasingly in human clinical research. This is not alternative medicine. This is nutritional biochemistry, and it's more interesting than most people realize. Vegetable number 1, broccoli. The compound nobody's talking about enough. When most people think about why broccoli is healthy, they think vitamin C, fiber, maybe calcium. And yes, broccoli is a strong source of all of those, but that's not why it keeps showing up in serious research literature. The reason researchers keep coming back to broccoli is a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane belongs to a class of compounds called isothiocyanates, which are found in cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage. But broccoli, and particularly broccoli sprouts, contains the highest concentrations of the precursor compound that produces sulforaphane. And the science around what sulforaphane does inside your body is genuinely remarkable. How sulforaphane is made and why this matters, here's something most people don't know. Sulforaphane doesn't actually exist inside broccoli until you eat it. Inside the cells of broccoli, there are two separate compounds stored in different compartments: glucoraphanin, the precursor, and myrosinase, an enzyme. When you chew broccoli, you rupture those cell walls. The two compounds come into contact and react, and that reaction produces sulforaphane. This is called an enzymatic reaction, and it only happens when the cells are physically disrupted. Chewing triggers it. So does chopping. Why does this matter for how you cook it? Because myrosinase, the enzyme, is heat sensitive. If you boil broccoli, you destroy the enzyme before the reaction can happen. Research from the University of Illinois found that boiling can reduce sulforaphane yield by up to 90%. Not a small difference. You're essentially neutralizing the most important compound in the vegetable. We'll talk about the right preparation method in a moment. First, let's talk about what sulforaphane actually does once it's inside your cells. The NRF2 pathway, your body's master defense switch. When sulforaphane enters your cells, it does something specific. It activates a protein called NRF2, short for nuclear factor erythroid 2-related factor 2. NRF2 is sometimes called the master regulator of cellular defense, and that's not an overstatement. When NRF2 is activated, it travels to the nucleus of your cell and switches on a broad set of genes responsible for producing protective enzymes, antioxidant enzymes, detoxification enzymes, anti-inflammatory proteins. We're talking about dozens of protective mechanisms switching on in response to a single compound. Think of it this way. Your cells already have the capacity to defend themselves. NRF2 is the switch that tells them to actually do it. And sulforaphane is one of the most potent natural NRF2 activators ever identified. Research from Johns Hopkins University, which has produced some of the most important sulforaphane research over the past 2 decades, has demonstrated that broccoli sprout extract can measurably reduce oxidative stress markers in human participants. A 2019 paper published in Cancer Prevention Research found that sulforaphane has epigenetic effects, meaning it influences how genes are expressed, not the genes themselves. Specifically, it affects the expression of genes involved in cellular protection and DNA repair. A separate study published in Nature Communications found that sulforaphane inhibits a protein called BET bromodomain, which plays a role in the progression of several types of cancer. The researchers described it as a promising area for epigenetic research. To be clear about what the science shows and what it doesn't, the strongest evidence for sulforaphane comes from laboratory and animal studies. Human clinical trials are ongoing, and we don't have the kind of large-scale, randomized, controlled trial data that we'd want before making strong clinical recommendations. What we can say confidently is that sulforaphane is a genuinely bioactive compound, not just a nutrient, and that the mechanisms through which it operates are well characterized and biologically meaningful. The inflammation connection beyond NRF2 activation. Sulforaphane has been shown in multiple studies to inhibit NF-κB, another key cellular pathway, this one responsible for triggering inflammatory responses. By moderating NF-κB activity, sulforaphane essentially helps turn down the volume on chronic inflammation. This makes broccoli particularly interesting from an immune support perspective. It's simultaneously supporting your body's antioxidant defenses and helping regulate inflammatory signaling. Two of the most important levers in long-term immune health, addressed by one compound. How to prepare broccoli for maximum benefit. Let's get practical. Here's exactly how to get the most out of broccoli. Rule 1. Don't boil it. As we covered, boiling destroys myrosinase and collapses sulforaphane production. This is the single most common mistake. Rule 2. Steam lightly. 3 to 4 minutes of light steaming preserves myrosinase well enough to allow the reaction to proceed when you chew. The broccoli should still be bright green and have some firmness, not mushy. Rule 3. The mustard powder trick. This one is backed by research from the University of Illinois, and it's worth knowing. Mustard seeds contain their own myrosinase enzyme. When you add a small pinch of mustard powder to cooked broccoli, you're effectively replacing the enzyme that was lost in cooking. Studies found this can increase sulforaphane absorption by over 3 times compared to eating cooked broccoli alone. Raw radish, wasabi, and horseradish have the same effect. They all belong to the same plant family and contain myrosinase. Rule 4. Chew thoroughly. The reaction requires physical disruption of the cells. Proper chewing, not just swallowing quickly, meaningfully increases sulforaphane production. Rule 5. Consider broccoli sprouts. This is the highest leverage option. Broccoli sprouts are the 3-day-old seedlings, and they contain anywhere from 10 to 100 times more glucoraphanin than mature broccoli, according to research published by Johns Hopkins. A small handful, maybe 30 grams, on a salad, in a sandwich, or blended into a smoothie, delivers a concentrated dose of the precursor compound. They're increasingly available in grocery stores, and you can grow them at home in a mason jar for about $5 a batch. Vegetable number 2, garlic. More than a flavoring, garlic has been used medicinally across cultures for thousands of years. Egyptian papyri, ancient Greek physicians, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic practice. That kind of cross-cultural, cross-millennial use tends to get dismissed as folk medicine. But in garlic's case, modern biochemistry has largely validated what traditional practitioners observed empirically. The reason garlic works the way it does comes down to one primary compound, allicin. And like sulforaphane, allicin doesn't exist in garlic until you disrupt it. How allicin is made: inside a whole intact garlic clove, there's a sulfur-containing compound called alliin and an enzyme called alliinase. They're stored separately. When you crush, chop, or chew garlic, the cell walls break down, the two compounds mix, and the reaction produces allicin. Allicin is sulfur-rich, reactive, and potent. It's what gives freshly crushed garlic its sharp, pungent smell. It's also what makes garlic one of the most pharmacologically active foods in the human diet. What allicin and its metabolites do: once allicin is produced, it's relatively unstable. It breaks down quickly into a family of related compounds, including diallyl sulfide, diallyl disulfide, and S-allylcysteine. These metabolites are what do most of the biological work, and they've been studied extensively. Immune function. A well-designed, randomized, controlled trial published in Advances in Therapy followed 146 participants over 12 weeks. The garlic group had significantly fewer colds than the placebo group, and when they did get sick, their recovery time was shorter. The proposed mechanism involves garlic compounds enhancing the activity of natural killer cells, the immune cells specifically responsible for identifying and destroying infected or abnormal cells, as well as macrophages, which are your immune system's primary cleanup crew. Cardiovascular health. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the Journal of Nutrition reviewed multiple trials and found that regular garlic consumption is associated with meaningful reductions in LDL cholesterol and systolic blood pressure in people with hypertension. The blood pressure effect appears to be mediated partly through hydrogen sulfide signaling, which causes blood vessels to relax and dilate. For context, an 8 mmHg reduction in systolic blood pressure is clinically meaningful. It's in the range of what some antihypertensive medications achieve. Antimicrobial properties. Allicin has demonstrated activity against a broad spectrum of bacteria in laboratory studies, including some antibiotic-resistant strains. This doesn't mean garlic replaces antibiotics. It absolutely doesn't. And anyone suggesting that is misleading you. But it does contribute to garlic's overall antimicrobial environment in the gut. Gut microbiome and inflammation. Garlic functions as a prebiotic, selectively feeding beneficial bacterial strains like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium while suppressing certain harmful ones. Since approximately 70% of your immune system is located in or adjacent to your gut, the microbiome is a significant lever for immune function. Additionally, diallyl sulfide and other garlic metabolites have been shown in cell studies to inhibit NF-κB, the same pro-inflammatory pathway we discussed with sulforaphane. Two different vegetables converging on the same inflammatory mechanism from different directions. Epigenetic effects. Research has found that allicin metabolites inhibit an enzyme called histone deacetylase, HDAC, which plays a role in regulating gene expression. HDAC inhibition is an active area of research in oncology. It's the mechanism behind several existing cancer drugs. The fact that a dietary compound shows similar activity is scientifically interesting, though we should be careful not to overstate what that means in a food context versus a pharmaceutical one. How to prepare garlic for maximum benefit. Rule 1. Crush or chop before cooking and wait 10 minutes. This is the single most impactful thing you can do. When you add whole or sliced garlic directly to a hot pan, the heat destroys allinase before allicin can form. The fix is simple. Crush or finely chop your garlic and let it sit at room temperature for 10 minutes before it touches any heat. During that window, allicin forms and partially stabilizes. It becomes more heat resistant. The American Institute for Cancer Research specifically recommends this approach. 10 minutes. That's it. Rule 2. Don't overcook it. Even after the 10-minute rest, prolonged high heat will break down a lichen. Add garlic toward the end of cooking when possible, or cook it briefly at moderate heat. Rule 3. Raw garlic is the most potent form. If you can tolerate it, raw crushed garlic delivers allicin in its highest concentration and most bioavailable form. One small clove, crushed and rested for a few minutes, stirred into a vinaigrette, spread on bread, or added to hummus. That's a meaningful dose. Even 2 or 3 times a week makes a difference over time. Rule 4. Aged garlic extract as a supplement. If raw garlic is hard on your stomach, which it is for some people, aged black garlic or aged garlic extract supplements are a well-studied alternative. The allicin is largely lost in processing, but the compound S-allylcysteine is preserved and has its own antioxidant and cardiovascular benefits documented in human trials. Here's a simple, sustainable weekly practice built on everything we've covered. Broccoli, 3 times a week minimum. Steam lightly, 3 to 4 minutes. Bright green, still firm. Add a pinch of mustard powder after cooking, or swap in a small handful of broccoli sprouts on salads, in wraps, or blend it into smoothies. Chew properly. The reaction requires it. Garlic, daily, crush or chop 1 clove. Let it sit 10 minutes. Add to whatever you're cooking that evening. Once or twice a week, try it raw in a dressing or dip. That's 2 ingredients, 2 simple habits, and a foundation of genuinely evidence-backed dietary support for your immune system and overall health. No supplements required, no expensive superfoods, nothing you can't find at any grocery store for a few dollars a week. I want to close with something I think is worth saying directly. Food is not medicine in the sense that it replaces medical treatment. If you have a serious health condition, you need to work with a doctor. Full stop. No vegetable, no matter how well studied, substitutes for that. But food is also not just fuel. The idea that what you eat is simply calories in, energy out, that view has been outdated for decades. What you eat carries information. It contains compounds that interact with your cells, your genes, your microbiome, your immune system in ways we're still mapping out. Broccoli and garlic are 2 of the most well-studied examples of that. The compounds inside them, sulforaphane and allicin, are real, documented, and biologically active. The research is published, peer-reviewed, and reproducible. And the practical steps to maximize what you get from them are simple enough to start tonight. Your immune system is working for you every single day, mostly without you noticing. Giving it consistent, evidence-backed dietary support is one of the most durable investments you can make in your long-term health. If you made it this far, thank you. Genuinely. This kind of deep dive content takes time to put together, and I want it to be worth your time. If you learned something useful today, hit the like button. It helps this type of research-grounded health content reach people who are actually looking for it. Subscribe if you want more of this. Every video I make, I try to go past the headline, explain the actual mechanism, and be honest about what the science does and doesn't show. No hype, no fear tactics, no overselling, just the research, clearly explained. Drop a comment below. I want to know, did you already know about the 10-minute garlic rule? And are you going to try the mustard powder trick with broccoli? Let me know what you think. I'm Ethan Reed. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.